What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Bonsai Jungle. On today's episode, I'm going to be styling a classic tree species, the Japanese Procumbens Juniper. As you can see, this is a tree that is getting closer to the refinement and final style stage of its life, rather than being in the early nursery stock phases of its life. So what we have here is a tree that I decided I was going to put in the small circular pot as one visual artistic anchor point here to accentuate this curving trunk, and then have a second area of optical interest on the end here. Now what I may do is repot this at a slightly different angle than I originally did, but the more important thing for me to do today is to trim back this foliage, because what I'm going to be doing by cutting off a lot of this foliage is encouraging the tree to back bud, make tighter foliage pads, and then we're going to get a little bit of separation between the branches and different areas and clumps of foliage instead of just having one big mass. So it's going to make the tree look more like a tree rather than a garden center nursery shrub. So let me get my scissors, zoom in, and show you what I'm going to be doing. So today's process is going to be very simple. First thing I'm going to do is get my pair of scissors that I bought from the local nursery, and then I'm going to get some rubbing alcohol on this paper towel, and I'm just going to wipe these blades to sterilize them. I didn't really do this in the past, but since on a lot of my pine trees I started getting fungal diseases, since that point in time I've made it a practice to try and disinfect any kind of scissors that I'm going to be using on the tree. What I'm going to be doing today is pretty simple. I'm just chopping back about 50% of the length off of all the green foliage on this tree. Here I'm going to isolate a branch to show you that because I haven't trimmed this since I bought the juniper, I didn't want to do it before dormancy. A lot of the growth is very long, but we do have these buds forming closer to the interior of the branch. So when I cut off the very end, it forces the tree to send the energy back towards the interior of the branch and grow those new buds, and that's going to result in more compact growth. And you want more compact growth when you're refining your tree, because that helps ramification, which means you have a higher number of dividing branches on each main branch, and that helps form the foliage pad instead of just having a stick with a single growth point on it. So what I'm doing here is pretty simple. I'm going to cut off all the bottom growth, and then all of the foliage on top gets reduced by 50%. And you can already see the foliage pad starting to take shape. And what I'm going to do is just pretty much repeat this process on every single branch on this tree. So here we are. I removed a lot of the foliage from this tree. You can see into the interior a little bit better, see the branches, see the definition and some structure in between these foliage pads and branches, rather than just a blob of green foliage. Now if I spin this tree around to the other direction, you can see that this side has had a fair bit of work done. It has some nice refinement, but this side is still kind of just wild and floppy. And I haven't pruned all the foliage back where I want it on this side yet, for a very specific reason. Overall, this tree's shape is getting kind of too wide that way. Remember, I want it to grow kind of out towards this angle, so I don't need this wide, flat tree. So what I'm going to do is take these branches and I'm going to wire them with some copper wire and bring them back towards the interior, pull them back, pull them down, and these branches are going to help us fill out this silhouette that I'm envisioning with the branches over here, rather than growing back the opposite way. So now I'm going to get my copper wire, which is a lot more sturdy and holds the bending a lot better than aluminum wire. And I'm going to take a piece that's about 50% of the thickness of the branch. And if you want to double it up with 2 strands of wire, you can do that as well. And I'm pretty much just wrapping this around the branch at a 45-degree angle as tightly as I can to not leave any air gaps. And then what I'm going to do is remove some of these branches here. You can see this one's kind of in the way. It has that weird 90-degree angle forming a square. So if I remove that, and I'm just kind of covering it with my hand to imagine what it would look like, I think that's pretty good. And then we can take that lower branch and pull it into place. So what I'm going to do is chop that off. There's kind of 2 pieces there. And then take the branch that we just wired and remove that interior foliage and now bend it right into that empty gap that we created. And now the triangle of the tree is a lot more compact. It looks a lot more neat and tidy. And so this pretty much established a nicer look to the tree in my opinion, and we can take some of those branches above it and wire them into place to just help that rounded structure and fill in any of the other gaps that were created by removing the branch. Now here you can see another situation where you've got 2 branches kind of also forming this kind of 90-degree angle square looking thing, and you can see if I let that branch grow, it's just going to be kind of awkward because in the final position I would need to let it grow longer, and it's just going to be kind of this C-shaped bend, which is strange in my opinion. We don't really need that branch, so I chopped it off, and this is what the tree looks like now. A lot better in my opinion. Now the other thing I'm going to be doing today is applying lime sulfur to these deadwood branches. I'm going to mix it 50 to 70% concentration with some distilled water. First I'm going to paint the water onto the branch just to help it soak in and distribute the lime sulfur a little bit better. And then like I said, I'm going to do about half and half to 70% lime sulfur with the water because I want this wood to get very, very white instead of this gray color. And this lime sulfur, it helps bleach the wood to make it white. It helps it preserve it from any kind of decay and fungus, which would eventually just eat all that wood off of the branch and we would lose the dead wood. So this is what the juniper ended up looking like, and you can see the foliage pads are a lot more defined. And I'm going to come back in here as the tree grows and refine it kind of week by week, but the majority of the work is there. Now it's just going to be a question of maintaining those pads and selectively pruning the new growth that's going to be emerging in this more compact and tight form. I'm also going to come back and reapply the lime sulfur as needed. It'll probably need a couple more coats just to make it really white and pop for all these deadwood features. But other than that, that's going to be it for today's episode of the Bonsai Jungle. I'm just going to fertilize this for the rest of the season and maintain the new growth. But we are getting close to the final design, or at least a more refined style of this tree. As always, good luck with your bonsai trees, and I'll see you in the next one.